Audience, you also have a responsibility as well. We are asking you to please hold your applause moving forward.
Each candidate will get 1 minute for opening and closing statements, as well as 1 minute with which to answer each question. Let's get started with the opening statements, and Attorney Lee Kaplan, get us going.
Thank you, Greg. I'm Lee Kaplan. I'm running for mayor to make this a greater city. We cannot afford to exclude anybody from that effort. This is an executive position. It's a leadership position, not a legislative one. And I have decades of private sector management experience running a successful firm based on competence, accountability, and integrity. And what I intend to do as mayor is focus relentlessly on key issues: crime, picking up the garbage, infrastructure, i.e. drainage and congestion, and simple, timely permitting so that young people can afford to buy housing. I'm not beholden to anybody. I am not the candidate of the political action committees or the insiders or the lobbyists. I just want to do a good job as mayor. And again, my name is Lee Kaplan.
Next up, State Senator John Whitmire.
Good evening, and thank you, Fox 26 and U of H, and everyone present, and certainly the candidates. It's great to be back at U of H. It's special to be here. It's where my political career started as a senior in 1972. The citizens saw the passion that I had in 1972 as a 22-year-old senior as I knocked doors, the same passion I have tonight. We live in a great city. We have great people, but we have expectations from city government that are not being met. Tonight we're going to talk about illegal dumping, the infrastructure, flooding, so many things that are not being addressed. But ladies and gentlemen, if we do not make ourselves safe by supporting our firefighters and our HPD, then nothing else matters. We can be safe in this city. If we don't, most of the other issues will not count. Let's go to work and solve the problems that people expect us to address.
Next up, Dr. Jack Christie.
Good evening. I'm Jack Christie. At 28 years old, I went on the Spring Branch School Board. By the time I was president, we were picked the most outstanding school board in the state of Texas. Then I went to the State Board of Education for 3 terms. We raised the standards in the schools to where the high school diploma became worth something again. We had an accountability system behind it. City Council was next, at-large position for 3 terms, elected 15 times in different elections. My last election, citywide, I got 97,000 votes. I'm the best prepared. I've been to 15 countries, 50 states, and this is an international city. Diverse as it is, I'm prepared to be your next mayor.
Next, we'll hear from the Honorable Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Thank you so very much to the University of Houston and Fox News. The question for Houstonians is to ask, what kind of city do you want? A livable city. I want a city where the people of Houston can trust that the mayor will see them and provide the best services in all parts of the city. I'm the only candidate here that's had multiple experience with all levels of government: federal, state government as a deputy commissioner of agriculture, council, and as well understands how government works to generate the $600 million that I brought here to Houston for it to be able to maintain its fund balance during the pandemic. I know how to get things done. I'm a mother, a wife, a grandmother, a breast cancer survivor. I believe in getting violent criminals off the street, but paying our police and firefighters, but affirming our city workers as well. I want to make sure that you have housing for young people, a tech center. I want this to be a livable city. Go with me into the future. Take Houston into the future.
Finally, Gilbert Garcia, who has served our city as a Metro Chair.
Thank you. My name is Gilbert Garcia. I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm a product of public schools. My first break is I went to Yale. I then worked on Wall Street for a few years. I'm first-generation college. I got back to Texas, to Houston, as fast as I could. Over this time period, I'm married. I have 4 children. I have done everything from coaching 40 seasons of soccer to announcing at the track meets. My firm, when I arrived 20 years ago, we were $200 million in assets under management. Now we're $21 billion. I know the ebbs and flows of the economy. I know what it takes to build wealth. I know what it takes to to be worried about meeting a payroll. That's what's missing around here. And ultimately, I've served on 2 pension boards. I get numbers very well. I was chairman of Metro. I took a very difficult organization. We turned it around. We got transparency awards for 6 years in a row. We got a full funding grant agreement. Thank you, Sheila Jackson Lee. Built light rail on time, under budget. Redid the bus network. Everything on time, under budget. Got Transit Agency of the Year for all of North America in 2015. I'm Gilbert Garcia. Don't touch that dial, Houston. There's much more to say.
Okay, let's get going with our first question. Polling from the University of Houston's Hobby School confirms a fact which most everyone in this room is acutely aware. Improving public safety is the #1 priority of Houston voters. The current mayor promised Houstonians he would expand their police force by 1,000 officers. That never happened. In fact, HPOU's president told me earlier this year the force could actually drop to 4,500 officers. Also of concern, the city has 500 fewer firefighters than it did in 2010. Question. Would you, as mayor, prioritize putting more first responders on the street, or simply try to do better with the resources we currently have? And Lee Kaplan, you're up first.
The answer is both. The mayor actually paid for a study, well, we did, $750,000 when he became mayor, to figure out how the city could be more efficient. And one of the things it said is civilianize many more functions to put more police on the street. That really didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And frankly, that means that neighborhoods do not get neighborhood policing. We have to do that in order to make people feel safer. The mayor in one of the papers has tried to claim that crime is down. That's not true. If you look at the pre-pandemic numbers and the current numbers, crime is up. And it's even more underreported than ever because people know that the officers are just too busy to do anything. In the meantime, we have feel-good measures like gun buybacks, which over 3 dozen officers have told me privately does not work. It's a feel-good measure. We have to be sensible, and when we do things right, then we'll be better off.
Senator Whitmire.
Greg, it's my highest priority as chairman of criminal justice in the state Senate. I know I can make a difference. We must have collaboration. We have 85+ agencies, law enforcement agencies in the city of Houston, large numbers of resources, but they're not collaborating. They're not talking with each other. You have to make this a priority, which I will do. I know day one, law enforcement will want to go to work for Senator Whitmire. Number 2, the firefighters. Their morale is terrible. It's 500 firefighters short across this city. We cannot live in a great city with those lack of resources. What we must do is acknowledge we've got a problem. You're not going to fix the problem if you don't admit you have it. And the current administration says things are better. But we have 900 people waiting to go to court on the streets of Houston. They're either on bond or they're fugitives, and that's the repeat violent offenders that you'll see on the 10 o'clock news tonight. We've got to address it because nothing matters than our safe. It's affecting our economy and our quality of life. And it'll be #1 in my world.
Dr. Christie?
I spent 8 years asking for 500 more police. I didn't have a majority on city council, so I never got it. I was appointed to finance chair, and there's our problem. We were wasting money. We were expanding government and wasting a lot of the money that would go to 10 police and fire classes to increase that. I'm not a show horse. I'm a work horse. I set 3 meetings, private meetings, without all the lawyers of the firefighters and city council. And I said, privately, let's work this out. We owe the firefighters a lot of money. It's been put off for 7 years. I will fix the finances and get the money to get 500 more police and to pay the firefighters what they deserve.
Gilbert Garcia.
Thank you. I'm not going to make any phony promises about we're going to hire this many or that many. At the end of the day, finances are going to be very, very tight. What I would bring back, of course, is more community policing. The firefighters already know in their firefighter model that they have stations spread out throughout the community. Why? Because the visibility is important, the deterrent of the visibility is important, and the fastest way to get to a crime is to be near the crime. So by spreading out community policing, enhancing it, I think we'll be able to solve a lot of the issues. I ultimately would also expand much more lighting. It is clear that in some of the high crime areas, lighting is particularly bad. I would also bring in more civilian workers because there are too many police officers that are now doing civilian work. As it relates to the firefighters, I would implement the will of the voters immediately, and I would go to arbitration. Thank you, Senator, for that. I would go to arbitration immediately.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Well, the city of Houston should know that the state law requires that the police budget not be decreased. And so I will make hard choices by ensuring that we expand our police department with added cadets. I'll be working with the local community colleges to ensure that there are procedures to make sure that some of those trained there can be utilized. Get violent criminals off the street and ensure that we have programs that work with violence intervention. It is always not about guns. It is about fighting against violence. And I was with the White House when we opened a gun violence prevention, which is an office that we will utilize. At the same time, I think it's time to look at revisiting our neighborhood storefronts. But I don't think chairing a committee where most of the people incarcerated in Texas are black and brown is the only solution. What we need to have is a solution that works with our police. We need to fix the fire department that I've worked with since being a member of City Council under Mayor Whitmire. I know how to build the relationships and the compensation for our fire and police. I'll make the hard decisions. We'll have safety in this community, and this city will be known as one of America's safest cities under Mayor Jackson Lee.
Next question. If you go to any community meeting, and you will hear the same complaint. The deteriorating conditions of Houston streets is not only an embarrassment, but it has now become a clear and present danger, not to mention costly for drivers. Adding to that frustration is the fact that Houstonians over the last decade have paid more than $1 billion into a dedicated street and drainage fund, and yet the roadways do not reflect that. Question: how would you as mayor reverse what many people see as an ongoing bait and switch? This first question we will start with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Well, as I indicated, I'm the only person on this panel tonight that has brought sufficient federal dollars to keep the city operating throughout the crisis of the pandemic. I brought these dollars. The city has been able to maintain basic city services. But I will make the hard choices. And I believe the drainage fund should be used just for what it is. Match with working with federal funds under the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which monies will be circulating until 2025. Knowing how to handle and get my calls answered, those funds can then match what we're doing here. Let's fix our streets, but also recognize our topography and the weather. Let's also focus on other priorities and services that must be done to build affordable housing. But you can be assured I'll be an honest broker, making sure that those dollars are used to work as much with avoiding flooding and working with fixing our streets. That's Mayor Jackson.
Candidates, please mind the timekeeper.
Same question to Dr. Jack Christie.
$1 billion from the drainage fee that taxed the citizens. I will not let one penny get out of that drainage fee for anything but streets and drainage. The mayor has a powerful position when we're in there, and he can designate where the funds go. I use as an example maybe Mayor Turner's pothole building in the beginning, filling potholes. You'd have to wait weeks to have a pothole filled. He got with that department, and council members like me, we got on the asphalt truck and everything. And 6 months later, they were caught up to where you get 1 day notice and you fix it the next day. We can do that again in Houston.
Lee Kaplan.
Sure. First of all, we have to use the drainage fee for what it's intended for, not just fixing potholes. The 18-wheelers rearrange those potholders. Only the orthodontists and the car mechanics are happy about the state of the streets. We've got to do what Kathy Whitmire did. Actually be honest, Tear up the streets and repair them, because that's supposed to be a drainage fee. The drainage is under the streets. Second, contracts need to have deadlines and real teeth for non-performance. I actually know how to read contracts, and I will make sure that our contracts have deadlines that are enforced. That includes every contractor we hire, because they work for the city, we don't work for them.
And lastly, Senator Whitmire.
First of all, you have to have someone with experience. You have to have someone that's willing to work across the aisle. The city of Houston has to work with Austin. We have valuable state resources that we're not receiving because of the poor relationship between City Hall and the Capitol. I know for a fact we can get our share of the Harvey funding. The new land commissioner was a colleague of mine in the Senate. We've already discussed hitting the restart button, repairing relationships between Houston and Austin, between the county and Austin. We furnished the state 1/4 of its revenue. We're not getting our fair share back. With leadership that has relationships and experience, I've worked with 9 mayors. I've seen what works. I've seen how Bob Lanier had people wanting to move back in Houston. Not just work here, but move back.
All right. Lastly, Gilbert Garcia. Last but not least.
I appreciate that. Obviously, we need to spend the drainage money on drainage. There was just a small nuance in the ordinance that allowed the city to manipulate the flow of the funds. So depending upon how you look at it, they've diverted over the last 12 years either $200 million, which is essentially almost a year's worth of activity, or even up to $400 million, which would have already built a new reservoir. And what's worse about it is there's very little transparency on the formula of how they're diverting that money. That has to stop. It would stop in a Garcia administration.
Okay, candidates, our third question. A culture of corruption. The words of Houston's former housing director describing the current administration. And candidates, whether you agree with that assessment or not, there has been an undeniable cloud of pay-to-play politics hanging over City Hall, whether it's airport contracts, affordable housing deals, or the retaliatory measures aimed at the firefighters. Question: as mayor, what would you do to reverse that perception and restore confidence in city leadership? I start with you, Gilbert Garcia.
Sure. First, you have to start with a very strong tone at the top, that will not be tolerated. Second, I already have a pledge that I would do for my first 100 days at Houston. I am calling for an audit on the housing department, which not only did the housing director say it was a culture of corruption, it has been then investigated by the district attorney, and even recently $60 million of affordable housing money from the state, from HUD, is not being spent here. I would also call for an audit on the health department. That's where a lot of the Harvey money came through, and that's where, in fact, the FBI raided. You look at the most recent procurement, I would redo the entire procurement process and fix it and tighten it like we did at Metro. It is very unusual to do a procurement as large as the one that we did at the airport 4 times when you got a different type of outcome on the 4th time. That is not normal. That is not usual. I'm Gilbert Garcia. It is time to shake up City Hall, and I'm the one to do it.
Lee Kaplan.
Look, the mayor is the hirer-in-chief. We have 22 departments. That's where you make the difference. That's why Bill White was such a great mayor. He insisted on good people. The housing director who was fired was one of his hires. I don't think there's a total culture of corruption. I think there are people who are uninspired and not led. But my firm has always been known for integrity. That's how we've been successful. And it's very important, not that we spend a lot of extra money on audits to find out something in 2 years, but we hire department heads who know what they're doing. And by doing that, the tone will be different throughout. The actual corruption in the city that's been located by the DA and the United States Attorney has been very minimal. Much of that's in the county. We found one guy who was paid $16,000 to reclassify a bar as a restaurant so they could get around COVID restrictions. But between our ambitious DA and our aggressive U.S. Attorney, that will be taken care of. Leadership is what matters.
Congresswoman?
Well, we shouldn't be playing games of who knows what mayor and whose mayor that they're following their footsteps. Follow your own footsteps. I'm going to be a leader in this city. And if I'm going to be a leader in this city, every single dime that comes into City Hall is for the people of Houston. Every contract will be open. Every procurement process will be transparent. Take the reins and lead. In addition, Investigations are not done just for investigations, but you can be assured the opportunity to promote people within that are good and hardworking, but to draw national experts to come and work in the city as well, to be able to build the building blocks of a 21st century city. I will be looking to, as I've said, to work with the federal government, as I did with Harvey, and orchestrated $155 billion for the Harvey recovery. We'll talk later about where those dollars went and why they were stopped. But the idea is you won't have a problem with procurement transparency, contract transparency under Mayor Jackson Lee.
Senator Whitmire.
First, we've got to have transparency. There's not a person here tonight or one of the candidates that know the true picture at City Hall, our financial condition. We've got to eliminate waste and conflicts of interest. What they did to the Pappas restaurant chain at Hobby should be criminal. It probably is criminal. They went out 3 times for vendor bids till they could get their friend. If you go out there tonight, they weren't even ready to take over. It's boarded up. It's not serving the public or the taxpayers. Housing authorities do not build a new affordable housing project next to a super site location. It's called the good old boy system, conflicts of interest, and we'll route it out by having total transparency. Chris Brown's been trying to have all the expenditures listed online since he was controller. Proud to have him supporting me. People will know every dollar that is spent by the city of Houston online, and then you can judge for yourself if it's being spent wisely.
Dr. Christie?
I've got a very good friend that was in charge of 4,000 appointments in the White House. In the 4-year term of that president, nobody went to jail. No one was caught lying, stealing, or cheating. That's going to be the Christie administration in City Hall. The first employee, 25,000 employees, will get a directive from me. If you lie, steal, or cheat the taxpayer, you're out of here. And I also hold that accountable to public officials, too. You lie, steal, or cheat from the taxpayers, you're gone. Even if you're my best friend, I'm sorry, you're out of here. And that's what the Christie administration will be. Draw the line.
All right, thank you so much. We are going to take now a brief commercial break, and when we come back, the candidates here are going to have the opportunity to offer a rebuttal to any of the questions that we addressed here in the first round. Again, we'll be right back with so much more when Fox 26's You Decide, Houston's Next Mayor continues. Welcome back to You Decide, Houston's next mayor, right here on Fox 26. As promised, this is the opportunity for all 5 of our candidates here on stage to offer a rebuttal to any of the 3 questions we asked before that commercial break.
Or anything that anybody else said.
And you're going to have 45 seconds to do so. Good. We're going to start this portion of our broadcast here with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee. You have 45 seconds.
I want to make it very clear. It shouldn't be what one is going to do. That's good. It should be what you've already done. Hurricane Harvey was one of the most horrific, catastrophic incidences in our lifetime. And I worked like heck with my congressional colleagues to get the $155 billion. We sent $4 billion to the state for a pass-through to Harris County and to Houston. It has yet to come. My opponent was in the state Senate. I didn't see one iota of work. You can't talk about being the mayor of the city of Houston, going to get the money that was already there. I needed him fighting with us to get the money for the people of Harris County and the city of Houston. Right. That's what the job needed to be at that
time. Again, please hold your applause. We want to get to all of our candidates here this evening. Next, we have Senator Whitmire.
First of all, we have to make infrastructure our highest priority. Great cities do not have to boil their water for 2 days as we did this spring. Great cities do not have to deal with illegal dumping. Great cities do not have to deal with the homeless conditions that we face today. We have to make infrastructure, quality of life, our #1 concern. And as I said in my opening remarks, if we do not make this a safe community, none of the other issues matter. I know how to bring people together, the resources together to address. I can work with the county. I can tell them, you've got to get the repeat violent offenders off the street. I passed legislation this spring to move the murderers and capital murder charged defendants to the front of the line of the backlog. I can make a difference the first day on public safety.
Attorney Lee Kaplan.
Well, let's follow the rules on time, but the bottom line is too many people are insiders, lobbyists, and political action committee savants. I don't have any of those disadvantages. I just want to do a good job as mayor for the average citizen who works hard and wants the city to provide services. When people say we're going to get more Harvey money, that's not true. It's already dedicated to the little towns. Let's not say that. When people say, I know how to get money from the federal government, that kind of pie-in-the-sky stuff is not there. We need to rely on ourselves, and make hard choices about the budget and hire the best people.
Dr. Christie.
Let me give 2 examples how I bring people together. I bring the blue shirts, and the red shirts and the chartreuse shirts together. One example, after Harvey, the Congresswoman Ted Cruz was here, and before the end of the first city council meeting at the GRB, they hugged. That's a major accomplishment. I brought the city. I brought the city and the county. The city and county did nothing. My first year as city council, they did nothing together. I forced them together with a free dinner, and they worked together to save the taxpayers' money. And I've got one more thing I'd like to say, but go ahead.
We appreciate that. We appreciate you. All right, lastly, Gilbert Garcia.
Okay, thank you. Senator, I'm very grateful that you're starting to adopt all of my pledge. I'm happy to have you sign it. I hope you will adopt one more item, which is, will you commit that you will not appoint any member of the Metro Board who would vote to take Metro resources to plug the city's financial hole? Would you pledge that, sir, that you will make sure every board member of Metro is in support of transit?
I'm running my campaign. Mobility is one of our highest.
Houston, you have your answer.
Metro needs to be scrubbed. It needs to listen to our residents and go forward as we have a great city and we'll have the mobility that we're looking for.
There's the answer.
We appreciate you guys for that rebuttal portion. Let's get on to our 4th question here tonight. Well, there is no city service more fundamental than garbage collection. And yet, Houstonians we spoke to say the city's performance is inconsistent, and that's putting it nicely. Not to mention, trash and recyclable materials are often delayed on pickups. As mayor, what action would you take to dramatically improve service and attack the plague of illegal dumping? First, we have Senator Whitmire to answer that question.
Illegal dumping is one of my highest priorities. It's one of the reasons I got in this race. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot go down the path of two Houstons. You go to some areas of Houston that have management districts and TERS, they got the best of everything. You go into low-income areas, they suffer from illegal dumping. They suffer from lack of city services. I am very concerned, and we should all come together to say we will not live in a community that is divided, where we have haves and have-nots. Illegal dumping is a health issue, it's a public safety issue, it's a self-esteem, and we will not tolerate it if I'm fortunate to be mayor.
Thank you, Senator Whitmire. Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Our citizens tell us that the pickup of recycling is now maybe 45% on time. You've got to do something. And illegal dumping should make you angry. It makes me angry. And so the issue is ensuring that your budget has priorities. We need more trucks. We need more of our workers. Our workers are getting 40,000 to 60,000. Private sector workers are getting 100,000. That is something that most people don't think that we focus on. You focus on building up that sanitation department by providing compensation, providing recruitment, and yes, for those who don't know anything about the federal government, it looks pie in the sky. But I know how to get those dollars. I've done it over the years. $1 trillion here to the city of Houston. We'll work with the Department of EPA to be able to find collaborative dollars to help us fight illegal dumping, which, by the way, there's a consent decree that I work with the Department of Justice so that they would work with the city. I know how to get the job done. We'll get a better pickup of all of our services. We'll get a better performance on our employees and get the job done as mayor. Thank you.
Lee Kaplan.
I strongly suggest that the Congresswoman stay in Congress then and keep working on these things. The truth is, we need more garbage trucks. They're breaking down, and we need more people. That calls for hard choices. That's why I told you at the beginning I'm concentrating on 4 things: public safety, picking up the garbage, reasonable, speedy permitting so we can have affordable housing, and finally infrastructure. We have to focus on these things. There's not extra money lying around. I hope we'll get more money, but we can't count on that more money. We have to prioritize what we do in the city. That's what I'm willing to do. That's what leadership is all about.
Dr. Christie.
Y'all are giving away one of my first week's goals that I go to City Hall. First week, I will send out bids to privatize garbage collection. I tried through the years on City Council, but I didn't have the votes to put those bids out. BFI, Browning Ferris, started by doing that just for Bel Air. We can collect garbage better, the private industry. I would go straight to Houston companies first and see that they can do a better job for less money. Chief Financial Officer for Houston left, and he said, Christie, your idea on privatizing garbage collection is A-OK with me. I think we could do that. Jerry Davis and I on City Council did the illegal dumping, and we got the sheriff and the police department to work together to have more and more cameras on these legal dump sites.
Gilbert Garcia.
That's another one of my items. Go to GarciaForHouston.com of my pledge for Houston, which is to expand and raise the penalties for illegal dumping all over the city immediately. But really, the whole illegal dumping and trash is just a symptom of a much larger problem, and that is the City Hall incompetence. And so ultimately, I think you got to shake up City Hall. I've talked about housing. I talked about the health department. We talked about the firefighters. Here's another one, permitting. I am experimenting with affordable housing. My wife and I are building a few units. It took us a year to get the permit. Totally unacceptable, because that's a year's worth of time that's lost on getting properties on the tax roll, as well as getting affordable housing that will stabilize communities and neighborhoods. We need an entire shakeup of City Hall, and that's what I do as mayor. I'm Gilbert Garcia. I want to be your mayor.
All right, candidates, the current mayor, Sylvester Turner, says he will leave the city of Houston on a solid financial footing. However, the mayor before him, Anise Parker, has looked at the numbers and concluded the city of Houston is heading toward a fiscal cliff with no federal pandemic relief funding to plug holes in future budgets. Candidates, clearly one of them has it wrong. Question: what is the city's true financial condition, and will it require more than what taxpayers are already contributing to solve the challenges we've been talking about for the last hour? And I throw that first to Dr. Christie.
We don't have a funding problem, we have a spending problem. And to answer the two mayors, which Mayor Parker did a great job on homelessness, Mayor Turner did a great job solving the pension deal. So they're both right, but you know who I would go to? I'd go to Mayor Bill White. It's a slow read, but read his book, The Fiscal Constitution. He blames the Democrats, he blames the Republicans, and if we don't quit spending more than we have, Jiminy Christmas, isn't that a novel idea? And that's the way the city will be. We won't spend more than we have in the city of Houston under a Christie administration.
Gilbert Garcia.
Anise Parker has it right, 100%. So does Chris Brown. And I disagree with my colleague. I have great respect for him. I don't think the pension funds have been solved at all. I think the next mayor is going to have to take on that issue. It's going to be strong. And the pension funds are not all in the same place. The firefighter fund is probably the best governance and the best funded. It is one I would have never touched. The municipal employees, obviously, is probably the worst governance almost in the nation, and has probably got some of the worst numbers, with many of their numbers being shielded by investing in alternative assets, which, of course, are not marked to market. So ultimately, the fiscal cliff is coming. We're going to need more resources. I think it's time to do two things. Proposition B is about getting better representation on HGAC, which is the governing body that spends money for the federal government in the region. I don't have time to go into it. I support it because I think that is long overdue that Houston gets its fair share. And ultimately, we're going to need to revisit TERSs. There are too many TERSs that are awash with money, and they are doing Christmas lights and all these wonderful things, while other parts of towns have ditches. I'm Gilbert Garcia. I have more to say.
Next up, Senator John Whitmire.
First, we must have transparency. We must go through and audit each of the departments, looking for waste and duplication. We also have to reach out to our partners at the county. We're in Harris County tonight. Most of the county services start at the city limits. In 2024, we cannot afford to have 2 library systems, 2 park systems, 2 animal shelter systems, neither of which works well. We've got to repair our relationship with Austin. We've got to talk to the TERS and the management districts. If we all come together and we're frugal, knowing our responsibility of delivering quality of life issues, we can get the job done. But first, we've got to have transparency and let the citizens know where the money's being spent, and for sure eliminate the conflicts of interest that is raising the cost of operating a city.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
I start out by saying that I'd be willing to make and must make tough choices for the people of this city. First, you'll get a structurally balanced budget with Mayor Jackson Lee. It's important to note that the $600 million that was here from the federal government has allowed for us to have the kind of general fund of $300 to $400 million. That's a fact. We're also going to be operating under the 2024 budget. That is balanced. Then 2025 will be a budget that we'll be able to work with because funds will still be here. The crisis comes in 2026. So you have 18 months to be able to work on this. And what you do is to ensure that you find more revenue, and you make the decisions in your budget to prioritize the needs of the city, but look for new revenue. We've had a lowering of sales tax because of the feds raising the interest rates. I've written to them to actively tell them to stop. But I will be looking for more investment, more dollars to come in to compensate for the dollars going out. We will have a structurally balanced budget, and it will be a budget that the city will welcome.
Lee Kaplan.
The only way you're going to have more revenue is making it a good place to live, to draw more people in. And you do that with law enforcement, and you do it by being honest. I've actually read the budget. read the entire budget. It's an eye glazer. But there are things we do that are silly. They're just silly, and we need to stop them. But that will not solve the problem. A garbage fee will be of some help. Giving TERSs a time limit will be of some help. Getting more money from the federal government would be of some help if there were more than we could expect. Getting help from the state, frankly, is unlikely. Working with them has not been very helpful for us, and all the municipalities in the area have grabbed off on money that we should have had. When we revise the HGAC arrangement, we may get our fair share in the future. But we can't count on these things. We're going to have to change things in the budget and focus on the four things I talked about: crime, picking up the garbage, infrastructure, and a simple permitting system.
All right, time now for closing statements. And because all of you on the stage have done such a great job, lucky you guys, we have a 30 extra seconds. So each of you will have a minute and 30 seconds for your closing arguments. How does that sound? Sounds good?
Wonderful.
All right. To kick things off in our closing statements here tonight, we have Lee Kaplan.
I don't have the political experience in the private sector that created this mess. I just don't. I've been in the private sector. I've had a budget every year for my business, our firm. Everything I've done has focused on what do we do about the next few years? How do we ensure our future? I don't believe in supporting the payday lenders, the cronies who get contracts, the people who don't attend to their contracts, the lobbyists who get so many extra bennies from the inattention of the city, or the cooperation of people who have been members of the political class. I'm not going to be the lobbyist's favorite. I'm not going to be the payday lender's favorite. I'm not going to be the crony insider's favorite. I simply want to run the city better. And that starts off with high integrity and appointing the best people. I've got a bunch of ideas about who to appoint, and they're not people who just look like me. They're all kinds of people, untapped resources in the city. I'm not beholden to people. I really am known as a contrarian because I ask questions. I've read the whole budget. I understand what we need to do with the budget. I do not believe in making pie-in-the-sky promises to people, whether it's about how we're going to suddenly have 500 more officers or we're suddenly going to fix our boil water problem. That's not going to happen immediately. It's hard work that gets these things done, and I'm here for that. Thank you.
Gilbert Garcia.
Thank you. My name is Gilbert Garcia. If you look at Houston, it's working for some. It works for the 50-year career politicians. It works for the insiders. It works for the lobbyists that are making millions. Their firms are making millions on lobbying. It works for them. But it's not working for us, everyday Houstonians, that have to drive to work on the roads, that do not feel safe, that are concerned now that we have to boil our water, that see our HISD taken over after 10 years of people threatening that we're going to take it over if you don't improve. They see all this stuff. I don't know if there's corruption or not, but one thing's for sure, a grand jury said there was enough to investigate the housing and health department. You've got 2 people indicted. At the end of the day, there's something wrong. Doing a procurement 4 times, I've done big procurements at Metro, to get the same outcome 3 times, but a different one the 4th time. That is not normal. And we all need to realize that. The only way we're going to solve these problems is at the top, a strong tone at the top. And that's what I want to bring. Because my dream of Houston isn't to be just a great Texas city. I'm not looking to be better than San Antonio or Dallas. I'm not looking to be better than San Francisco. I want to be a great city of the world. Like New York, like London, like Paris, like Munich, like Tokyo. That's where Houston needs to be. I'm Gilbert Garcia. I want to be your mayor, and I'll get us there.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
I started out by asking the question, what kind of city do Houstonians want? And I believe it's a livable city. I also believe they want a mayor that understands the kitchen table issues of paying for bread and milk and eggs. I believe that they want, yes, basic city services and everything to work on time and the whistles blowing as they should and get the violent criminals off the street. But they also want a city that has a vision and has a bright new future. They want a city that the University of Houston students and other college students will begin to say, I'm staying here in Houston because there are outstanding jobs. They want a mayor that has a reach across the nation to bring in new investment and new companies that will create new paying and good paying jobs. They also want to make sure that I understand how things can be exciting, creating an entertainment center that generates millions and millions of dollars. Every hotel was taken up with Beyonce. It was packed. More dollars were coming in. We need to have a city that is alive. Yes, there are things that we need to do, but good paying jobs, being able to understand mom and pop, protecting small businesses, empowerment, and making sure that you don't do deals in City Hall for someone else. The only deal you do is for the people of this city. As Maya Angelou said, if they show you who they are, that is who they are. And so I want to make sure that we have a city for all people.
Senator Whitmire.
Thank you to U of H and Channel 26. If you don't remember a word that I said tonight, remember this, if you don't remember anything else. Every issue we've talked about tonight requires us to come together. We have people in this city that would divide us along racial lines, along ethnicity, along sexual orientation, by party. We're not going to be the great city that people are recognizing around this world if we do not put our differences aside and come together. I'm running for mayor for one reason. I've had a distinguished political career. I get things done. I bring people together. I'm running to make a difference. I made a difference this spring by working across the aisle, by creating an entertainment district downtown, 3 miles in every direction from George Brown. We will capture the state sales tax, billions of dollars to downtown infrastructure. We will enlarge the George Brown. We'll take care of the art theater district. It'll open up the east side with the east side entrance to George Brown with an additional convention hotel. I can get things done. I have the experience and the commitment and the passion to bring people together. Our fire and police are working together today because of my bringing them to the table. We will do a firefighters contract. We will give our firefighters and our police the respect that this administration has not. So let's bring everyone together, go to work. I wish I could start in the morning and use all of us talking and unifying this city. We talk about our diversities, but we've got to practice it.
And Dr. Christie.
I've got a good campaign staff. They're dynamite. And they know that this is the first fiscal conservative that will balance the budget of this city, where we have money for the firefighters, where we have money for the police. They told me to avoid controversial subjects. But I want to talk about what divided this city. Starts with a C, ends with a D. It's a virulent animal to man transfer. Before that disease, this city got along. I was on the inside. The churches, the synagogues, the mosques, the volunteers. We got the greatest nonprofits in the world here. I went to 14 countries with one mayor, 9 countries with another mayor. They love this city because the most diverse city in America, and we got along. But then we were divided. We couldn't hold Grandma's hand. We couldn't stand 6 feet away. We had to stand 6 for my friend. You couldn't visit your brother in the hospital. We divided people. We made them angry. You couldn't see them smile. Couldn't see them laugh. I'm going to bring that back. This is going to be the greatest city in the United States because we're going to be happy again. We're going to share again. The churches will be together. Your brothers and sisters will be there. And that's why I'm running for mayor, to make this the greatest city in the United States.
Candidates, we have a little extra time, so we're going to wing it here and do a little bit of a lightning round.
Woo!
All right?
Let's go.
What do you see as the biggest asset that this city has? Congresswoman Lee?
It's people. I think it is important to end this wonderful debate on the richness of the diversity of this community, both ethnically. This is Yom Kippur. We have wonderful communities all over this great city. But let me just also be very clear. No one on this stage has a hold on bringing people together. I've worked across the aisles in the United States Congress. My legislation generates that, and I will do that in this city. I know how to go to the governors and sit down and work with them. I know how to work with police and fire. No one has a monopoly. It's bringing people together because you care and because they trust you.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Senator Whitmire, our city's greatest asset.
Obviously, it's people, it's track record, it's can-do attitude. Look at the railroad crossing on 45 where it says, be someone. That's what we're all about.
Lee Kaplan?
Well, I think it's an entrepreneurial spirit. You know, the private sector is so much bigger than the city's budget. And one thing we haven't done is really gone to the private sector and recruited them to do things that are for the city's welfare. There are things that people do for photo ops, but a mayor who's represented the private sector has a better shot of getting work out of them. You know, I've raised $2 million from over 2,000 donors by just calling them and asking what they think. And what I've learned is people want to do things.
Go ahead, Dr. Christie, 30 seconds.
All right. This city did get along, and I guarantee it's the most diverse city in America, and we were happy, we were healthy, and it's not that way anymore. We've got the greatest philanthropists in the country. We've got the greatest nonprofits. We got volunteers at the food bank, at the parks. That's all going to come back under our administration. We're going to help each other return this city to greatness.
Final word to Gilbert.
It's everything. Houston is amazing. It's the people, it's the food, it's the music, it's the theater, it's everything. It's the sport teams. That's what makes Houston great. And that's why we are destined to be one of the greatest cities in the world. I'm Gilbert Garcia. I want to get us there. I want to be mayor.
All right. Thank you to all of our candidates here on the stage, offering their time and their perspective. Thank you to the University of Houston for offering us this amazing venue. Thank you to everyone here in the audience listening to become a more educated voter. And thank you at home for watching as well here on Fox 26 or even streaming. If you missed information and you desire to learn more about any of these candidates here on your screen, we have this information for you on fox26houston.com. You can also download Fox Local and get some more information there as well. We also have another debate for you. Mark your calendar. Monday, October 2nd, we have 7 candidates. We'll see you there. Good night, everyone.
Don't miss it.